Welcome, guests, to another episode of God in the Middle, where we share testimonies with fabulous guests about how God is in the middle of their wins and their victories, their storms, whatever their circumstances may be, sharing the enlightenment of how they recognize God was orchestrating it all. I would like to introduce my co host to you, Karina Ruthenberg. Hey, Karina.
Hey, Cass. Good morning, all. We are thrilled to have you here with us today as we share a wonderful testimony of a friend of mine, Coach T. I met Coach sometime around 15, 16 years ago. We've been in Christian circles, church together for quite a while, in and out of each other's life. And his reputation precedes him. Also, a couple of my kids, I think, went to school with a couple of his kids. So I know I've met Bree, your daughter, and your other two boys as well. So welcome, if you would, Coach T, who is a wrestling has been a wrestling coach in the Kansas City area for 30 plus years. And we're just going to let him share his story a little bit. I do want to woot his book here, Race in America, A Call to Heal, which I have read actually a couple times. And we're just thrilled to have him with us to share his story and what God has done for him. So Coach T, take it away.
All right. It's an honor to be here today. I've been a coach. This is my 40th year as a coach. I've coached all over the city. As I tell people, I've been in the hood, been in the burbs, been in the country, Christian schools, homeschool, kids, you name it, Catholic schools, schools like Rockhurst, Olathe Northwest, Platte County, Lincoln, Grandview, and many others. I also travel around the country. So I'll go to Long Island, New York, or Memphis, Tennessee, or Denver, or Seattle to help young people. Probably most of the kids I coach I never get to see because I have a lot of YouTube out there. And some kids from Pennsylvania, Georgia, Alabama contact me that I never get to meet unless it's something like an NCAA championships or Big Ten championships, something like that. They'll come up to me and I'll think, where do I know you from? They say, oh, I've got your DVD or that kind of thing. So I get to work with a lot of young people. I'm very blessed to be able to do that. And thousands of kids I've been able to kind of encourage. I work with a lot of fatherless, struggling kids and help them have some vision in their life instead of taking a destructive path in life.
That's awesome, Coach. So what made you decide you wanted to be a coach?
Well, as in high school, I wanted to be an NFL. Well, first I wanted to be a Major League Baseball player. I wanted to take over for Frank White. Okay. I got invited to a Royals tryout. I was a pretty good baseball player, but then wrestling was introduced to me as a sophomore at East High School in Kansas City. I didn't want to wrestle, didn't know anything about it, but I was a football player, and I cracked my arm hitting the little sled we had in our football practice. We had raggedy equipment, and it was a metal part instead of the padded part. So I hit my forearm up against it, and I broke it. And so the whole school was making fun of me because I had a cast in my arm. So he broke his arm hitting a dummy. But in the homeroom class that year, my sophomore year in 1973, my center said, hey, we're going to have wrestling this year. You need to go out for wrestling. You got a lot of energy. So I went out and I was terrible. Almost quit because our wrestling coach didn't know anything about wrestling. He was a track guy. He didn't know much about wrestling, put it that way. And so he just ran. So I almost quit. But anyway, make a long story short, I stuck with it and met the coach at Blue Springs, Chuck Sears, my sophomore year. And he kind of mentored me and taught me some good technique. And I got good. And I ended up walking on at Central Missouri State University and became a two-time MIAA champ and All-American. Now I'm in the Hall of Fame. I've been coaching for 40 years, helping young people.
That's so awesome. And your kids have followed in your footsteps. They're all very successful and very athletic. Tell us what your daughter Bree. This is crazy to me what she does.
My goodness.
She's 40 now, isn't she?
Bree was when she was little. She wrestled. All her family wrestled, and she beat people up pretty good. A little skinny girl, you see.
Yeah.
And then as she got older, she dropped out of wrestling, did track, softball, a little bit of basketball. And now she's 39 and she's a jiu-jitsu champion. They live in Taiwan. And she's a stud.
That's just crazy. And her dad calls her a stud.
I love it.
Oh, yeah. Yes. She got married 10 years ago in Paris, France. And,
wow.
and went to Rome and Venice, Italy for a little honeymoon. And now they live in Taiwan, which, China's caused some issues over there. So you guys be a prayer for that.
Yeah, absolutely.
Three grandkids dealing with that situation as well. But her kids speak 4 languages because they lived in Budapest, Hungary, Seattle, in Virginia, and now in Taiwan. So my son-in-law works for the State Department, so he travels all over the world.
Gotcha.
True citizens of the world. I love it.
Yeah. And one of your sons is a chiropractor and has a training or coaching business as well. Is that right?
There's two different ones. Nate is my
Okay.
oldest son. He's 36. He'd remind you of Patrick Mahomes or Russell Wilson. That's what he was like. He was quarterback at Blue Spring South. Then he went to Pittsburgh State and was an All-American down there. Pittsburgh State ran track and played football there. Now he's a chiropractor. He has a Precision Health Clinic, which is on 85th and Warnell in that mall area. So him and his wife, KT, they're both doctors. They do a tremendous job over there. John, my youngest son, is 33, and he was a national champion at Pittsburgh State in 2011 in football, four-time state champion wrestler. And he now is a trainer in Muskogee, Oklahoma, trains athletes.
Awesome.
Sounds like there's quite a Williams legacy out of Pitt State.
Oh, yeah. Both my boys went to Pitt State. I went to Central Missouri. Central Missouri thought they were too small, so they just went to Pitt State and scored touchdowns against them. So that's what happened there.
Well, let's get to the heart of the matter, which is race in America, and kind of we need to understand, where you come from in order to understand what you're trying, the message you're trying to get across through your book and through your life, really, because your story exudes your message. So tell us a little bit about your Christian background and how that has molded you and influenced you.
Well, grew up in Kansas City, lived right over there off Woodland and Paseo, that area, for many years. Growing up in the early 60s, there were so many things going on, from like the Freedom Rides and bombings in Birmingham and Martin Luther King, all the marches, things like that. I was a little kid, didn't know much about it, but in our area, we had all kinds of people. So growing up, we had all kinds of people, and we just knew them by name, not by color. So there's a bunch of racial stuff going on in America, but we knew nothing of it, that little group there. So I was blessed in that area. Didn't realize until later on how blessed I was to be in that situation. There was a German guy, Hans, I don't remember his last name. He drove a little school bus around, a little church bus, and he would pick up neighborhood kids to take them to this Presbyterian church over on Linwood and Woodland. Big old church. Never went to the church service, but went to the Sunday school. So as a little kid, 3rd grade, 4th grade, 5th grade, I'm riding this bus to this church and learning how to honor Christ as a little kid, me and my family. So all these little neighborhood kids would go to this church. And so then that was huge. Then roughly in 1968, Martin Luther King was assassinated on April 4th in Memphis. I was a 9-year-old kid. I'm 63 now. We lived on 3417 Paseo, which there's a fire station there now. But it was my house back then, and we were up on the upper deck, and we're eating dinner on April 5th, the day after he was assassinated. And our house started shaking like we're in Ukraine. We're like, what is going on? We ran to the window, and we looked out, and there was wall-to-wall tanks in front of our house. So as a little kid, I'll never forget that. The whole place was shaking because Paseo was a nice little level street at that place. And there was 4 rows of tanks, and the place was just fully militarized. There was rioting on 31st Street, 27th Street, and they were headed that way. So we were on 34th, so we never saw any rioting, but we felt the effects of the tanks rolling down the street. So that kind of made me think, what's going on here? And so anyway, fast forward to East High School in 1974. I'm a sophomore. The inner city schools used to be all white back in the day. So a lot of people wouldn't understand that, Not I think inner city school is Black and Hispanic, but they were all white back in the day. Blacks could only go to certain schools, and you couldn't live past a certain area for the most part. So when I grew up, we were living on 10th Street, couldn't go past like Truman Road. My dad would tell me back in the 50s, and so I didn't know anything about them. I was listening to the stories from them. Anyway, as time moved on, we got to move a little farther south. We were on 34th and Paseo. That was a big deal, back then. So anyway, 1974, I'm a sophomore at East High School. We had about a 70% white student body. 1954, they had Brown versus Topeka. So 20 years before I'm a sophomore, they had this separate but unequal thing. And so still schools were struggling, slowly integrating. Okay, East High School was still a 70% white school, and we got along pretty well back then. But one day I'm sitting in English class, quiet reading, and we hear noise out in front of the school. We look out, huge race riot going on, kind of like what you would have seen after George Floyd in Minneapolis or Portland or Seattle. And this is during the day at school. So I ran to the window, the whole class ran to the window. So it's kind of like a Remember the Titans moment, where me and my buddy McQueen, we were like Bertier and Julius. And we looked at each other because we were baseball players, football players, wrestlers. I was involved in FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes. So that was very important also. I got involved starting as a sophomore, learning how to honor Christ through the athletics and the coaching. And then, so sitting there watching all those people, and I'm looking out there and I'm seeing a lot of people that I know that on a normal basis look like we got along pretty well. So that was a hard thing. I talk about that in the book. That'll be one of the things you'll see in the movie that we're hoping to get based on chapter 1 and 2 of the book there. Big riot there. So anyway, so 74, big race riot. We still hung in there. I wrestled. Uh, Met the coach from Blue Springs, did very well thanks to him, and walked on at Central Missouri State and had a tremendous career at Central Missouri State. But at East High School, I got involved in FCA, Fellowship of Christian Athletes, YFC, Youth for Christ. And
Mm-hmm.
so there were different ministries that helped me as a kid. So then I actually became a Christian as an 8th grader, went to Palestine Baptist Church, and had a great youth group there. And so my Sunday school teacher impacted upon me that I needed to have faith in Christ in order to make it in this world. And then afterwards, and I understood that as an 8th grader, and so I accepted Christ. And so that shaped what happened at East High School. I was able to avoid the drugs, the alcohol, the disrespect. That wasn't as bad as it is nowadays, just a little, but still being respectful of teachers, respectful of parents, not getting involved in premarital sex, and not doing the drugs and things like that a few people were involved in. That shaped me, so I had a foundation to go on and not just do what everybody else was doing. So that's my high
Yeah,
school.
that foundation was firm for everything else you've gone through. So, moving ahead to when you went to college and you met someone there who you spent a few years with. Why don't you tell us about your lovely wife?
Oh yeah, so my sophomore year, I'm a wrestler. I met there was a young lady that was one of our wrestling managers, and her friend was Becky, my wife now, and they both went to Odessa High School. And so Becky, my wife now, dated a couple of wrestlers in high school, so she got to see some high school wrestlers, but she'd never seen the real men wrestle. So she got to come out there and watch us wrestle, and it was like, oh my goodness. Yeah. So anyway, we started dating a little bit, and she was involved in FCA also, and I thought it'd just be dating. I dated several ladies, so it wasn't that big a deal, but it became a big deal. So we decided after a while they wanted to get married. So we dated for a whole year, but her parents refused to meet me.
I don't know that you've said Becky is white.
Yeah, I don't know if you have I have a picture over here. They may or may not be able to see it, but anyway, so that is correct. Oh my goodness, and there we go. You can see that. That's our wedding picture.
Mm.
So
Oh,
that's her.
wow.
She made that dress. Most ladies don't
Wow.
make their dress. So anyway, so we get married on Friday, August 8th, 1980. But I met her parents 2 days before the wedding. So that's going to be a little drama in the theater because we dated for a whole year. They refused to meet me. So on the week that we got married, that we got married on Friday at our college down in Central Missouri State, down in Warrensburg, Missouri. On that Monday and Tuesday, her parents sent older couples from their church to harass us, to talk us out of getting married. So that was a surprise. So that Monday, she's finishing up her dress, got me doing a little honeydew stuff. You know how that goes. And we get a knock on the door, and it's an older couple that had gone to church with her since she was a little bitty girl. Now, she was 20, and I was 21. So the guy comes in, shakes my hand. How you doing, young man? And they sat down across from us for about an hour and a half, and they heaped all kinds of condemnation, primarily on her. They would say things to her like, think about your family, think about the church, think about your kids. And the tears would flow. That's going to be a deep part in the movie there for people that can understand that. So then they would leave. And then the next day, another older couple came, did the exact same thing. These are very family, intimate friends, so it's very impactful for her. So now we're Wednesday, August 6th, 2 days for the wedding. She's kind of a mess. And I look out the window. I said, who are these people? She said, oh my goodness, that's my mom and dad. So you can imagine that scene. So he's coming. I got that look on his face. I'm like, oh
Mhm,
my goodness, here we
mhm.
go. So he comes up to me and he shakes my hand. And then he sits down right across from me. And you guys have seen a regular sized Bible, probably seen a big Bible. He had a supersized Bible.
Mm.
It looked like a big old briefcase. So he opened that big Bible. He looked at me first, then he opened that big Bible and he read to me from 2 Corinthians 6:14, where it says, thou shalt not be unevenly yoked. And then he stopped. And everybody got quiet. And then I raised my hand. I said, sir, that verse goes on to say unevenly yoked in the spirit, which is what it says. And so he got mad that I knew that. So he slammed that big Bible in my face. Boom. He said, son, you're wrong. He said, I'm not prejudiced.
Mhm.
I ate with a colored guy once. He said some other things too that probably was. It's not in the book, probably in the movie. It was pretty intense.
Yeah.
Anyway, so for 21 years they banned me from their house. And then 41 years ago, our first Christmas of 1980, I took my
Mhm.
wife to my parents in Kansas City. So we had a nice little dinner there. But towards the end of dinner, I thought, it's Christmas. We need to go to your parents. Her parents always have a dinner, gift exchange, and a big family prayer. And she'd never missed it. She was 20 years old. I said, you're not missing this year. So we jumped on I-70, headed to Odessa. I'm sorry. They lived in Odessa, lived out in the country. We get there, all the family's there. But her parents saw me walking up the stairs. And her dad runs to the door and he stops me. He says, "Oh no, boy, you go back out and sit in the car." So I'm sitting out in the car. So like I said, when we do this movie, you'll see a scene of a young guy, because I'm an old guy now, sitting in the car on Christmas of 1980 out in the country. It's freezing cold, a lot of snow, and they're inside enjoying the meal, fellowship, family prayer. So I tell local people, I said, we go to the premiere on that. When they show that scene, you come pick me up off the floor. I'm going to be a mess, because it's not a movie to me. I lived that, for 3 years. I sat in the car on Christmas. After that, she just couldn't take it anymore. There's a YouTube video out called Coach T's Story, and it's like a reenactment of that. And I don't know if you've seen that or not, but if you go to YouTube and type Coach T's Story, it's 5 minutes. Make sure you're sitting down. So it's just a reenactment of that scene. I don't know the people involved in there. I was in a 2-hour studio asking all these questions and stuff, and then they took it and put these things together. So that's why I know I got to get the right person to do this movie, and they'll do a tremendous job, and it'll be good. But anyway, I don't know where I left off. I'm getting old here.
So after a few years, she couldn't take it anymore, right?
Right. So
Yeah.
21.
Can I ask? Can I insert here, Coach? Were you ever angry at that point, and just tell her, she's your wife, that you cannot go there? Leave and cleave is what Scripture says.
Right. So here's our discussion. Our discussion going down that first time. We were excited. We thought surely, since our parents go to church on Christmas, they'd let me in. But then we discussed about, well, what if they don't? And we talked about Psalm 90:12 that says to number your days that you may obtain wisdom. So in other words, your parents' days are numbered. I said, you need to go in there anyway. You need to spend as much time with your family as possible. I said, I'll sit out in the car if I have to. We talked about what Martin Luther King and Fannie Lou Hamer and Medgar Evers, all these people went through, going to jail, getting beat down, getting shot. I said, I'm just sitting out in a cold car on Christmas. Not a big deal. No comparison. So that was the discussion we had. So when we got there, we didn't expect him to say I couldn't sit in the car. I couldn't come in. But I went back, and she didn't want to go in, but she went in like I asked her to do so. And we did that for 3 years. But after 3 years, we had our daughter. So Bree was born in September of 82. So on Christmas of 82, we go down there. I got my daughter in my hand. She's a few months old, so he's going to let me in now. I got a daughter. And when I got to the door, he said, she can come in, but you can't. So I gave my daughter to my wife, and I went back to the car. And that was the last time we went down as a family for 21 years. Then I would let her go down. She would go down with the kids, and for all those years. So it was a hard thing.
That's intense.
Oh, your question was about bitterness. I was upset in that how it made my wife feel, because she wanted his approval and everything. But as far as somebody not liking me for whatever reason, color, fat head, whatever, it doesn't matter. I can handle that. So that didn't bother me too much, but it bothered me that it was how it was affecting her. And so I had a lot of sensitivity towards that.
There's one. Go ahead, Cass, while I find this.
No, I was just going to say, Coach T, what were your conversations with God like during that time? Like, were you sitting in the car? What was your thought process?
Oh, my goodness. Sit in that car, a range of all kinds of emotions, because I'd have the radio on, have probably on a Christian radio station, listen to some music, just praying that someday this would end and I'd be able to go inside. Sometimes there'd be a few tears flowing, just thinking about the wasted time sitting out here in the car type of thing. So it was a tough time. But I was able to get through it, like I said, by praying and asking for, and also forgiving him, remembering that 70 times 7 forgiveness type of thing. And so as the years went by, we got along great. So that's the next level when you get ready for that.
I think that's so incredible and important for people to hear, because sometimes they'll take that "why me" approach,
Yes.
right? It's just our flesh. We want to know why us, but
or victim,
or
that
victim.
you're a victim of something. In your book, there's a line that you have written that I think really kind of sums up who you are, and I love it. And especially today with all the polarization that we have, whether it's politically or racial or conservative, whatever it is, there's a lot of polarization. But you say the racism bothered me at the time, but it was later in life that I started to be offended by it. But instead of letting that offense make me bitter, it has made me resolved to affect change. And oh, Jesus, if we could all get on the same page as that. So tell us a little bit more about that and how that has driven how you deal with these situations.
Yeah, well, what I do, I'm also I'm a coach. I do audits, a lot of audits for companies. I'm a Lyft driver. I've done Uber, done 16,000 rides. So I meet the world every day. People from Ukraine, Russia, Israel. Oh, the tears flow in my car. And when they get in, they get to look at my book. I have treats for them. So they have treats and they get to look at the book and they look at the wedding picture. We talk about family from guys from Germany, Australia. So 3,800 writers have bought my book from all over the world. And then I get an email from after they read chapter 1 and 2. I say, well, after you recover, let me know your thoughts. So I get emails from Rochester, New York, Albuquerque, from all over the United States and then around the world. But I'm noticing that, and then plus I go and speak. I'll speak at conferences, I'll speak at schools or churches or corporations. I get asked a lot of the same questions, but I'm noticing that, especially when they're in my car, it's one or two people and it's very intimate and they speak their heart. People say, hey, my parents were in the Klan, or I was in the Klan, or I never owned a slave, we all these types of things, but you can tell with the tears that flow in my car that it's a sensitive topic around the world, especially in America. And so I realize that there's people that are like, I can't affect their change as far as what I want to. They're so bitter, especially older Black people and even some older whites that have just seen so much stuff, And so I try to help them to realize that, God's about forgiveness. Forgiveness is in Christ. And I had a guy from Saudi Arabia in my car, and he looked at my book and he said, "You forgave this man?" He goes, "We cannot forgive." He was a Muslim and he was angry, man. Death. I said, "No." I said, he says, "You're a better man than me." I said, "Well, no, not really." I said, "But our Jesus talks about forgiveness. So that's what you have to do." And then, like I said, as the years went by, I'll finish the story later for you, whatever. But it ended up good in the end. So it's going to be a powerful story. And you're going to need a few hankies when you see it.
So, yes. Go ahead. Did you have something, Cass?
I was just going to say, Coach T, I feel like your ministry is a teaching and healing ministry and really focused on kingdom over culture, right?
Over culture. Yep. That's right. I get to do a lot of that.
Yeah.
As it should be.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So tell us about your relationship with your father-in-law as the years went by.
Okay. So for 21 years, I was not allowed in the house. So my wife would go down with her kids. And then there was another family that she used to babysit their kids that lived in Harrisonville. So we would go down there as like a, what do you call it? Like instead of going to their place for Christmas. So we go to my parents, and then she would go down with her parents, and we would go down with this other couple, Harris family. Matt Harris is the pastor at Eagle Creek Church now. He was a little kid back then. And so anyway, his family, we'd go and have Christmas dinner with them, or whatever the case was, whatever the holiday was, and do things with them as a family. They represented her family, you see. Now at our wedding, most of her family came. So her aunts and uncles came. So her parents, brothers and sisters came. And that's what was kind of unique, that only the parents didn't come. They wouldn't allow her brother and sister to come. But then that very next year, 1981, we had a big family reunion in Higginsville. And so the family said, "Hey, Greg and Becky, we want you guys to come to the reunion." And I thought, oh, no, I don't want to cause any problems, But they said, "No, we all came to your wedding." I said, "You're right." So we pop in Higginsville, this family reunion. Everybody's eating, having a good time. Sunny day. And I get in there, me and Becky walk in there, and everybody gets quiet. Her parents looked up and saw us, and he jumped up. I got an angry look on his face and took his family and walked right by us. He just kind of gave us an evil look and walked out the door. So it's kind of awkward for about a minute. After that, we had a great time, So there were little things that happened over the years, but like I said, as the story goes on, it ends up good. That's a good stopping point there, I think.
I definitely, this is a big story, Greg. And I think we're probably going to have you come back another time and kind of tell us the rest of that story. One question I do have for you at this point is, if you could go back, what would you tell your younger self? In light of everything that's happened to you up to this point in your life, what would you tell your younger self?
Wow. Well, I would, for the most part, tell myself what I experienced, just to be prepared for all kinds of things and just lean on Christ, for whatever comes your way. There's no way you can, like, on your own tough it up type of thing, and you got to lean on Christ for giving you the strength to endure. And like I said, I look at it like the things I went through was really not much compared to what a lot of people went through. The people in the Holocaust, what those families went through, people during the Middle Passage in America, the people with the Trail of Tears, the Indians, Native Americans. So my stuff was very minor compared. So I looked at it in that frame of mind, but always trying to focusing on what I can do to help people. So as a coach, helping these young fatherless boys to be men of valor and courage, nowadays boys don't know if they're boys or girls or whatever. So I want them to be men of valor and courage, so that way they can be great husbands first and then great dads. And then my job is done as far as coaching them.
Yeah.
God is using you well. That's one of my, it's amazing perspective. That's one of my favorite scriptures is Proverbs 3, 5, 6. That's what
Ooh.
I heard in it. Like it's absolute favorite. I'm very curious, Coach T. What's yours? What's your go-to scripture for tough
Well,
times, for difficult times, for recentering? What's your go-to?
well, as a coach, we have several things on our jerseys and our singlets. One is 1 Corinthians 9:24, where Paul tells the Corinthians to run the race in a manner that they obtain the prize.
Mm-hmm.
Also, Judges 7, I'm huge on that with Gideon. He only had a few guys. We got the victory. He was afraid. And then I said, I want to get 300. He only had 300 men to go against all those ites, Jebusites, Midianites, all that kind of stuff. And so that's why I try to build tough young men in that area too. Also, Joshua 1:9 says to be strong and be courageous. We have a lot of very tender boys in America, soft, so I call soft mothered boys that are afraid it might hurt my fingers too hot. And I get in there, yeah, I'm gonna make it tough on you. So that way when life gets tough on you, you can deal, you see. So
Yeah,
that's what I tell
they
my
can
football players.
stand.
Yeah, that's right. That's what I tell my wrestlers. I'm gonna give you cruel and unusual punishment. So when life comes your way and it's tough, you can say, hey, I can do that. I can make it. And that's my kids where I lit my kids up, as far as like giving them stuff that's tougher than them, putting them through adversity. I think James 1 talks about to rejoice during those tough times. And so we get to live that out.
Amen. So
Amen.
I think you're right, Coach. There are others that have gone through much more, but I think your story, the thing is your attitude and your outlook through what you've gone through may not be big compared to them, but it's how you go through it that leaves such an impression and is such a testament to all of us and to those that run into you. So we do have to hard stop. Coach T, I thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story with us today. We are going to have you back, Cass.
Okay.
Wouldn't
Yes.
you agree?
Yeah, I agree.
If they want to contact me, they got coachtTD@yahoo.com. That's my email, coachtTD@yahoo.com. Or they can text me at 816-699-4985, and I'll come speak to their group, or they can get a book or whatever the case is.
And the book's available on Amazon if you don't want to reach out to Coach T himself.
Yeah, you want to get it from me so I can sign the book from you.
There you go. Oh, well,
because once that movie comes out,
right?
Yeah,
movie be called The Call to Heal. And if you know someone that's good at movie making that can handle a movie about healing, let me know.
Yeah, I messaged you about Angel Studios. I think you need to look at that.
Thank you.
Yeah,
that's amazing. I am just in awe of you as a person, especially the way you can just walk in forgiveness. That's such a battle. That's probably the biggest thing that keeps us in bondage.
You're right.
Our inability to forgive. So amazing testimony. Yeah, there's so much more that needs to be shared.
Oh yeah. It gets real deep.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
Well, thank you for your time, Cass. It was great to see you both on the screen today.
Yeah.
And to our guests, we thank you for sharing the time with us this morning, and we look forward to sharing more beautiful stories of how God's in the middle of people's lives, and He's real and He's authentic and He's active. Our God is not dead. So we look forward to seeing you again in a couple weeks, or talking again in a couple weeks. Until then, this is Cass and Karina with God in the Middle. We'll see you then.
Amen and goodbye.